Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about the new movie, Meg 2: The Trench. I watched the first Meg movie when it first came out, and while I don't know if excitement is the right word to use when I saw the commercial for the second one, I wanted to see how it ended up being. The synopsis is as follows. Jonas Taylor leads a research team on an exploratory dive into the deepest depths of the ocean. Their voyage spirals into chaos when a malevolent mining operation threatens their mission and forces them into a high-stakes battle for survival. Pitted against colossal prehistoric sharks and relentless environmental plunderers, they must outrun, outsmart, and outswim their merciless predators. So without further ado, let's get into 6 things that make a movie great. 1. The plot. The movie didn't really seem to know where it was headed, and that makes me believe that the director didn't really know either. Jonas and his team want to go down and do more research in the trench when they come across a big underwater building that shouldn't be there. They also find a couple more Megalodons, and after that, an explosion causes a landslide, shipwrecks them underwater, and they have to figure out how to get back to the surface. But this movie can be broken into 2 parts. Half the movie is painstakingly slow and boring and tries to take itself seriously. The latter half of the movie is that random, ridiculous, high-octane action that I was hoping for, but at that point, I kind of just wanted the movie to be over already. The bar was pretty low for this movie, and it still found a way to go underneath of it. So for me, plot gets a thumbs down. 2 is family friendliness. Meg 2: The Trench is rated PG-13. There's minimal profanity, a decent amount of action and violence, and some gore, especially in the second half of the film. And you see quite a few people get eaten, killed, crushed, etc. I grew up loving sharks, and I feel like this is a movie that I probably would have been okay with watching as a kid. But because of the violent content in this movie, I have to give family friendliness a 50-50. 3 is acting and script. Jason Statham plays Jason Statham. And beyond that, there were really no acting performances that really stood out. Cliff Curtis showed glimpses of being decent, and Shuya Sophia Kai had pretty decent moments as well. And the script of this movie is not going to win any awards, and I knew that going into it. I felt that during the first slower half of this movie, the dialogue between characters was okay, but in the second half, it just unraveled, as did the storytelling. The second half was just a bunch of random things happening with no logic, no sense, really stupid decision making, and pretty bad acting performances. So for me, acting and script get a thumbs down. 4 is character development. Ha! Like there'd be character development in a movie like this. There were a couple sentences that flirted with character development between Jonas and Mei Ying, and that was it. But for the most part, all that you get with any of these characters is just a little bit of personality, but you get no development. It doesn't feel like you know any of them, you don't care about them, and when they do or don't die, you just don't care. Character development gets a huge thumbs down. 5 is visuals and CGI. Believe it or not, the CGI in this movie did not actually bother me. I didn't go into this movie hoping to see incredible CGI. I just wanted to see a decent action flick that had perhaps questionable CGI and had to do with really big freaking sharks. So while some of the CGI is not great, it didn't bother me. I just love the idea of seeing gigantic sharks swimming around, eating people and causing chaos. I guess for me, I hoped that there would have been more creatures, because the commercial kind of suggests that there's going to be a bunch more creatures in addition to the Megs. There's only 2 additional creatures. It was pretty disappointing. And one of those creatures you don't even really see a ton. But you know what? I don't care. Visuals and CGI were not the worst part about this movie, and they didn't pull me out of it. In fact, it was one of the only reasons I decided to stay in the movie theater and not walk out. So for me, visuals and CGI get a thumbs up. And 6 is rewatchability. Meg 2: The Trench clocks in at just under 2 hours long, and you feel it every paddle of the way. Goodness gracious Ignatius, the first half of this movie drags on for so long. It lulls you to sleep, and then the second half / last quarter of the film wakes you up a little bit just in time for the credits. I went in with the expectation of leaving my brain at the door, but I walked out wishing I had left everything else there too. For me, rewatchability gets a huge thumbs down. With all these areas considered, I have to give Meg 2: The Trench a 1.5 out of 10. Why a 1.5, you ask? Because while this movie is one of the worst movies that I've seen this year, it's not as bad as Cocaine Bear. The Megalodon CGI was the only part about this movie that I really liked. Everything else about this movie sucked. The plot was distracted and random. There was no character development. The acting was pretty poor. The twists were stupid and predictable. And while you wanted to cling on to the fact that this movie is B-rated, it tried to take itself seriously in the first half and then just kind of went off the rails in the second half, which puts its audience members in a really awkward mindset that doesn't really allow them to enjoy this movie. In my opinion, this movie is worse than the first one. Not by a wide margin, but enough. So with all that in mind, I would say Meg 2: The Trench is not worth going to see in theaters at all, and probably isn't worth watching on streaming platforms when it releases there either. Thank you so much for watching. If you've seen Meg 2: The Trench, please let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. As always, I appreciate your love and support, and I'll catch you guys and gals in the next one.